Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Towering tall above the battlefield, the constructs of the Tomb Kings will take to the field. We have Tomb Kings versus the Beastmen today, as we have Honeynut leading the Tomb Kings, and Butcherbird will be commanding the Beastmen. Now, for the Tomb King army, we have a front line of Nehekran warriors, which do quite well against pretty much everything that the Beastmen are pretty much expected to bring. Certain units like the Bestigors should be able to beat them, but otherwise against Ungors they do quite well, good damage dealers, and they will be supported by quite a mass of skeletons though, as we have some skeleton spearmen mixed in with some skeleton warriors to provide just plenty of chaff units for the Tomb Kings here that to be protecting a few of their skeleton archers, and they also have a couple of constructs as well, with the Kemrian War Sphinx going to be taken to the field, bonus versus infantry armor piercing, and then we also do have a hero Titan as well, which does magic attacks and flaming attacks as well. So this thing is quite the beast. It also comes with a bound spirit leech as well as a Shem's burning gaze, so a little bit of extra spell casting on the field. Doesn't take any winds of magic for either of those, but for the winds of magic we have Arkan the Black. He's going to be on foot, a little interesting pick with him being there. Could be just with funds, but generally you do see him at least on horse to provide him with a little bit of mobility. If you are worried about him getting sniped out, you can keep him on foot, potentially against wood elves, but he is going to be bringing Spirit Leech himself, the Libra Mortis, as well as Staff of Nagash and the Tomb Blade of Arkan. So pretty standard stuff for his kit. The only exception is going to be having him on foot, but otherwise plenty of units that cause fear and a couple of terror sources as well. So pretty standard then for the Tomb Kings, nothing too one way or the other. But we'll see how it competes against the Beastmen. So the Beastmen are going to have the Blackhorn Ravagers. Is going to have Immune Psychology as well as Perfect Vigor. So very good pick against the Tomb Kings, because all of their units do have fear, and they do have those terror sources as well. For the rest of the forces, we do have Gore Herds for that front line. Pretty cheap standard infantry. We have some Senegors mixed in with some Chaos Warhounds on the front flank. But for the heavy hitters, it is going to be this little group of units here. We have some Minotaurs with shields, a pair of those, very good unit armor piercing, and some Bestigor herds as well, which should trade well into everything that the Tomb Kings have in terms of infantry. Now for the Lords and Heroes, we have Morgur the Shadowgave, going to be bringing Spirit Essence of Chaos and the Staff of Ruinous Corruption for some Chaos Spawn summons on the field. We do also have the Brace Shaman of Wild, going to be bringing Vile Tide as well as Savage Domination. So getting that Cygor summon to be able to fire at range against the tightly grouped up Tomb Kings can do quite a bit of damage there, or even in melee is a big, large monster, always helpful. And the Vile Tide will do quite well against really all of the Tomb King infantry, even Tomb Guard if there was any. That'd be a good task or a good target for those. Good against low armor. So that's very good in that regards. But that's going to be all. We also do have a Gorbel armor piercing, bonus versus large, good against the constructs. And he does also have one item which gives him a nice little buff to leadership as well as immune to psychology, is the Blood Greed. So again, against the Tomb Kings with all their fear and terror, that is a nice little unit to have to keep them in the fight and kicking for as long as you can. But let's get things rolling, as both sides now going to slowly move towards one another. The Beastmen have a pure rush build, so they're not going to be wasting any times with this. Going to be trying to get straight on into the Tomb Kings, but there is a ton of Tomb Kings for them to chew through. They're not going to have any of Senegors with throwing axes, which would be kind of nice to have, especially with all the constructs here. But I think with this point, the Tomb Kings are just going to try and keep everything at bay for as long as possible and allow the Kemrian War Sphinx and that Hero Titan to really do a lot of good work. The only other thing that maybe Arkan could have brought would have been the Doom and Darkness as well. But we're going to start off with a Shem's Burning Gaze going right on through, not really doing any damage. I don't think it even killed a single Gore herd and hardly did any damage to the Minotaurs there, but there is that Vile Tide, and you can just see how much damage that thing does. And with a grouped up formation, like even the Hecaran Warriors, 45 armor, 10 armor on the Skeleton Warriors, it's going to do really good work against these grouped up formations, even against the archers as well. So lots of targets for that spell. So hopefully it's going to be casting that all game long for the Beastmen, trying to get things moving here. The Skeleton Spearmen are going to take up formations, trying to defend their archers archers for as long as they can, but they do have their constructs in a good position to counter any charges by the centaurs on both sides, so they should be able to keep things firing and doing well throughout. But in comes the big hitters here, the Gorbel and that Grey Shaman a while, but another Vile Tide going right into the middle of those archers, just absolutely doing so much damage, and the Minotaurs barrel rolling on through those Nehekran warriors. So far with the Minotaurs supporting that frontline engagement, these Nehekran warriors are taking a ton of damage very early on, but so are the Goreherds taking a lot of damage and slowly getting whittled down. But the big units for the Tomb Kings are going to start wading through the front line here. We do have the Necrotech as well with his Restore supporting, as we get the summon of the Cygor in that back line. Going to be taking out one of the archers already before they were able to use up too much of their ammunition, but now that Cygor is going to be wrecking havoc in that back line, as well as some Chaos Spawn. So lots of things, and a nice little back rear charge into the King Nikesh's Scorpion Legion by those Chaos Warhounds. Going to be trying to break them as quickly as they possible, but these spears are going to be sandwiching them in, so they are going to be routing fairly quickly there with all that fear and terror as away they do go, getting terrified by that Hero Titan. But now the Chaos Spawn are doing quite a bit of damage in that backline, chewing through Skeleton Warriors left, right, and center, and the Blackhorn Ravagers as well, doing very good against these Skeleton Spearmen. Hardly taking any damage, but they are taking some shots from the Skeleton Archers in the rear. The only unit of, well, there's the other unit of Skeletons who has been able to stay nice and healthy throughout, but in come the Bestigors as well. Bestigors now full health, not a whole lot that can really contend them, and things are not looking so good for the Tomb Kings, as so much of their infantry has gotten broken down so quickly. But they do have both of their big constructs alive and well, though Arkin is in a little bit of a predicament, getting surrounded by all of the Centaurs. He does have his Tomb Blade. I don't think he has used, actually I do see the summon right here, so he has used one of the summons, which just dissipates right now. So with him engaged, he hasn't taken a whole lot of damage, so he is recharging that Tomb Blade. But now both of the Khemrian War Sphinx and the Hero Titan is charging this Gorbel, who is now very much away from all of his support. Getting a little bit too ahead of himself, trying to take down that Necrotech. And even though he is bonus versus large and armor piercing against both of these constructs, he is not going to be having a good time, and he is going to be wavering right now, terrified, and he is going to be running for the hills just for a little bit, though he will be back as he is only terrified. Cygor summon does finally dissipate, and the Ushabti summon as well is now on the field, looking to engage these Minotaurs, try and get as much damage off as they can. And these Minotaurs, they do not have armor piercing, so those Ushabti should be able to cut through and do some nice damage while they can. Once again, the Gorbel just getting punted all the way out of that engagement. The Centaurs right now going to be keeping those constructs at bay, as that Gorbel does try and get back into the fight and into the support of his own units. It looks like a Shemsburning Gaze was trying to go down from that Hero Titan. It did get cancelled, though you should be seeing it try to cast again momentarily. But now all of the Tomb King infantry, for the most part, is gone. We have one unit of the King Nikesh's Scorpion Legion left, and these spears are on death's door, and these Ushabti as well are just getting mauled by the Blackhorn Ravagers as well as the Bestigors. So it is down to just the big units for the Tomb Kings, and we'll see if they're going to be able to pull things out here. It is not looking so great for them, but of course the construct's going to be some very tough nuts for the Beastmen to crack, though they do have all the tools still around to do it. We have the Minotaurs, the Bestigors, and the Gorbel is still alive, though he is pretty low on HP. Though he should be able to provide at least a little bit of assistance, hopefully get some nips at the heels, but he does need to stay with the rest of his units. Can't be getting too far ahead of himself now, because the Beastmen cannot afford to lose them, and the Tomb Blade of Arkin does go down, though, providing some nice infantry support for the Tomb Kings, and it is going to kind of separate the Minotaurs, the Gorbel, from the rest of the Bestigors and Blackhorn Ravagers, so they'll be taking quite a bit of damage since they aren't really mixed in with their infantry support. That Khemrian War Sphinx doing some good work, and again, here is that Gorbel isolated a bit, and he is going to be getting tag teamed by that Hero Titan and Khemrian War Sphinx once again. Minotaurs taking a ton of damage to boot as well, but in comes the rest of the infantry support for the Beastmen, though having them all blob up now is probably not exactly what they want to do, but we do get another Chaos Spawn summon, and it is going to be just absolutely surrounding Arkin the Black here, and he is going to start taking a ton of damage when he is surrounded by all these unbreakable units, and even though the Tomb Kings are starting to trade fairly well, getting rid of that Gorbel and those Minotaurs, losing Arkin would be very catastrophic for them, and they are going to be losing their Necrotech as well by the looks of things. Stuck in with all these Centaurs, and that Bray Shaman's going to be cycling in and out, going to be taking that thing down. maybe a little too early before it used up both of its restore abilities. Well, not really sure if I missed one or not. But we do have a Spirit Leech trying to break these Minotaurs with shields as best that they can, trying to peel off all the models. And there is, let's see, I believe there's 5 models left, and it is going to be routing now. And with how low it is, it very well might shatter before it gets the chance to really pull out of that engagement. However, the Cambrian War Sphinx does have the Libra Mortis on all of these units here, going to be giving it some nice bit of physical resist and leadership, though it has taken a ton of damage from all of those Minotaurs, and the Bestigors now are given it a nice little surround, and with their armor-piercing values, they don't have bonus versus large, but they do have very good armor-piercing values, so they should be able to chip away at those Cambrian War Sphinxes as best that they can. But right now, as you can just see, the Beastmen definitely have an advantage in terms of numbers. It is only these 3 units left, though Arkan is slowly replenishing his Tomb Blade here. It does take a little bit of time for them to recharge. I believe it is 2 minutes when engaged in melee. That another Spirit Leech is going to be finishing off some more of this Minotaur's. Only 1 left, and it is on Death's Door, 5 HP. But here is that Tomb Blade of Arkan, and we'll have another 2 minutes before another cast is going to be available to Arkan, and we'll see if he's even able to survive that long. But getting the Skeleton Warriors in, and it does have more unit. It has 150 versus the 120 that a normal unit does have. So it's going to be a little harder to break, but we are seeing some units from the Beastmen starting to shatter here. And the Beastmen really should try and focus down Arkan as best they can. Arkan or this Cambrian War Sphinx. If they can take out either of those, things will start looking. But we have a mass terror rout. And just as I was thinking the Beastmen were doing fairly good, there's a mass terror rout. All of these units start routing away. And now the Tomb Kings are in a very good position, because now they can just kind of pick and choose which ones they want to go after and chase off these routing units. But it looks like they are going to elect to instead turn their attention to the Lords and Caster of the Beastmen, focusing the Bray Shaman with a Spirit Leech, and Morgur is getting beat down now by that War Sphinx, and the Hero Titan taking quite a bit of damage. But just as these the summon from Arkan is starting to dissipate, and he himself is very, very low, he is crumbling, and he is down to less than 100, so he is good. His leadership actually does stabilize, but I think it's going to be too little too late, because in comes these Blackhorn Ravagers, and all they got to do is get a couple hits off onto Arkan, and down he will go. He is crumbling once again, so it is going to be down just to the Hero Titan and the Cambrian War Sphinx. Balance power does favor the Tomb Kings here, having both of these units have fear and terror, and the crumbling will take quite a long time for them to really take any considerable damage. Though Morgur is able to regain his leadership, but all these units that are left are starting to waver right now. They are terrified. One does shatter, and it's just the Blackhorn Ravagers left, who do have immune to psychology, but we do have some returning units. The Bestigors and Goreherd going to be coming back, but that Bray Shaman is going to have to pull something out to be able to pull this one back. Cycle Charge may try and focus down the Cambrian War Sphinx to just have the Hero Titan left. But that terror is just going to be so hard for the Beastmen to stay in sustained combat for long enough. And with all these units, they've already routed off at least once or twice so far. So another rout, and we can very easily see them just shattering. That Bray Shaman it can't really afford to get close. Being with this fear and terror, you see the Bestigors once again terror rout. Though the balance of power still is relatively close, though a lot of that is in Morgur himself. With his abilities, but in comes, it looks like we have a little summon here of a Cygor in the late game. Late game Cygor summon in the back pocket. Bray Shaman just able to get enough Winds of Magic for that. And in it comes, going to be able to put down the beatdown on the Cambrian War Sphinx and that Hero Titan. And a single shot might be able to finish off the Cambrian War Sphinx. It looks like he is going to instead elect to engage in the charge, trying to take things down. But the War Sphinx does finally crumble to the ground as it does collapse into the battlefield, leaving just the Hero Titan left to fend off what is left for the Beastmen. And Morgur getting ever so low, taking a hit from that Hero Titan. Still in the fight, his leadership has not broken just yet. But man, he is getting so very low. He does have regen himself, so he will slowly get some of that health back. And I would, at this point, not elect to engage in melee, because if he does go down, you can see the rest of the Beastmen quickly dropping in that regard. as he takes one more little punt as he gets knocked out of the engagement, but that Cygor continuing to whittle down this Hero Titan in the late game. And man, this is quite close. Balance of power starting to edge in the favor of the Beastmen. Now, a lot of that is in that Cygor summon, who is on his final stage of his summon, so he will be disintegrating fairly soon. But if he can do enough damage to the Hero Titan while he's still on the field, he might be able to trigger army losses. But that Brave Shaman taking a hit, and man, the Tomb Kings are so close to army losses at this point, but that Hero Titan standing in the fight with his swinging his stick left and right, able to rout off Morgr, and that Cygor is just not able to do enough damage quickly to break down that Hero Titan. The Hero Titan is crumbling, but Morgr does finally die, and you can just see the balance of power shift so quickly on the other side. Man, that was such a close game. That Cygor almost was able to do enough damage to that Hero Titan, but alas, its summon wore out just a little too late, or too early for that Beastman. And the Beastmen were not able to capitalize on that. It was so close to being able to come back. It looked like they had it, but that Cygor, with it being a summon, it just wasn't quite enough. So take a little look at the after battle report as we have that Brave Shaman of Wild. You see all that damage racked up as being on a chariot, as well as all those Vile Tides doing a lot of damage. And you don't see the Cygor damage from the Brave Shaman, considering it was a summon. The Gorbel himself getting 1,000 in value, and he was misplayed a little bit, got a little too ahead of himself, and had he been a little bit more reserved and made sure, because he had to be kept alive to deal with the Hero Titan and the Cambrian War Sphinx, and especially considering how much infantry that the Beastmen had left, having him in that infantry, I'm pretty sure would have won the Beastmen the game, especially considering they had that Cygor summon in that late game. Otherwise, taking a look at the rest of the units, the Centaurs themselves doing quite good. Bestigors, Blackhorn Ravagers getting some good value there. However, the Minotaurs with shields not quite doing as good as they could. Now on to the Tomb King side of things. Arkan the Black, despite being on foot, was able to rack up some good value, Spirit Leeching some very good targets. And all of his summons are just so useful. I mean, his kit is just so versatile and is very good in pretty much any matchup. The only thing you lose out on is being able to have him on like a Sphinx or whatever. But he does get his chariot, which is quite useful as well. Rest of the units, so for all the Skeleton Warriors, I mean, pretty much the infantry for the Tomb Kings did not do so well. King Nikesh Scorpion Legion was able to get their value. But otherwise, even these Hekron Warriors, they got beat down so quickly by those Minotaurs with shields on that initial charge, taking a ton of damage. Skeleton Archers doing some okay damage, but the heavy hitters, again, for the Tomb Kings were the Cambrian War Sphinx and the Hero Titan, getting around about 5k value between the two of them. So they were really the hard carry there for the Tomb Kings. And the Beastmen, oh, it was just so close. They almost had it. They were just so close, a hit or two away from army losses on the Tomb Kings, and they would have been able to disintegrate that Hero Titan, but alas, just not quite enough, quickly enough. And the Tomb Kings do survive to not really live another day, but to last another day. So that is going to be all I have for you today. I do hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good one.